family and I, we recently came back to Tucson from the Bay Area. We were so excited to have a chance to go and live in the Bay Area for 7 years. Okay, I'll make it closer. And when we went there, the first little guest house we had was a little one-bedroom, and it had blackberries, and it had this old stove, and it had wooden floors that was just adorable. And it had a window that overlooked the neighbor's garage. And the garage was all sunken in, it had a rusty basketball net attached to it, and it also had this sign. It was the cross street sign that I assume used to be at the cross street of Pleasant and High. And I was right looking into our kitchen window. Those were our neighbors. And as far as I could tell, they were great. In that house, it was hard parking because we lived near the park. And if you had a front yard, you parked on it, and then kind of got blocked in sooner or later. And I often got blocked in and had to think about, like, what do I do about this? You know, it was kind of a crash course in urban living. Because, I'll take you back a little bit, I grew up in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. That was one place that I lived, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's just this protected woodlands in South Jersey, and it's just woods and trails, and our neighbor's house, we could only see it in the winter because the leaves didn't have any trees. But my best friend, Jennifer Sommerberger, lived there, and we had a great time exploring all that wild woods, and I feel really lucky that I got to grow up in a place like that had all that wilderness. And I remember just briefly when we were maybe 4 or 5 years old, our parents took us out and we cleared a trail in between our homes. And we like cut down blueberry bushes and moved logs out of the way and moved the rocks. And that was the only time we ever had to cut that trail because we walked on it so often in between our homes. And it was great. We're back to Oakland. I'm blocked in. And I don't know what to do. Do I call a tow truck? Do I call the landlord? Do I do nothing and just, find another way to get to work? But I don't even know these guys. I mean, I kind of know what they do because I can smell it. But like I'm by myself, I'm a woman. But I just got up the courage and I went over and I knocked on the door. Hi, I'm blocked in. Do you think you might, move? And they were so cool. Like the guy's like, oh, I think I woke him up. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he moved his car. I got to where I was going, and we played out the same thing maybe dozens of times after that. But every time it just got easier. To the point where I think one time I just knocked on his door and was like, good morning. And he went out and we were just gone. So eventually we got a house in East Oakland. And East Oakland has a bad reputation, but this house was amazing, and it was in a good neighborhood of East Oakland. And we were really grateful to be there. And I remember when we moved there, I was 8 months pregnant, and it was a really stressful time. Transitions are stressful. And this woman came over, and she had a basket full of figs. And she said, I live in the house over there. These are from my yard. Welcome. Wow. Like she took a chance to do that. She didn't know us yet. And I was so grateful. And that just kind of set the scene. And we had our son. And of course, everything was crazy at that time. And our neighbors at that house were so amazing. They would do things. They would kind of come over and say, we had a new baby and everything was crazy, and they'd say, hey, we're taking our dog for a walk. Can we take yours too? Really? Sure. And I remember our neighbor Becca she offered to just, she must have seen that I was a wreck, and she offered to come over and just, hold the baby for a while so I could take a shower. And I have this issue of, wanting the house to be clean when someone comes over, wanting to be host and wanting to, just not put anyone out, or things like that. And so my first reaction was, no, I'm fine, it's fine, thank you. She's like, Jen, we're your neighbors. You're screwed. I'm coming over. And that's just how it was. That's just how it was. They took care of us. And we did what we could when we could as well. We hosted waffle brunches on Sundays and had waffles and mimosas and had neighbors come over. A couple of years there, and urban living really started to hit home a little more. My son was about 2 years old, and he loved watching fireworks. But there came a time when the fireworks sounds were happening over and over and over again, and he gets so excited, Mama, fireworks! I'm saying, okay, let's go do something else. And I'm just gonna bring you right to where we're going, but there was one time when I was with my son, and we went into the house, opened the door a little bit, and he says, Mama, the computer's gone. Daddy must be fixing it. And I looked in, and the house was a mess, more of a mess than it usually is, and my heart just sank. And I grabbed him, and I ran back to the car, and got in the car and got 911 and said, hey, our house has been broken into. I don't know if anyone's still in there. I'm alone with my son. I don't know what to do. And the woman said, okay, stay where you are. We'll send somebody over right away. I called my husband. He had a job in San Francisco, so it was like an hour away from him. He's freaking out. And he calls our neighbors. And before I know it, Michael from up the hill comes down. Michael's a big guy. He's full of tattoos, hard with gold. He teaches poetry. And he comes down with a baseball bat. Doesn't even ask me any questions. Walks right into the house. And then I get a text message from Becca. Get over here now. Okay. I take my son. I go over to Becca's house. And I'm in shock at this point. She takes care of Julian and kind of entertains him, gives him stuff to do. And Michael comes over, says it's clear, there's nobody in there. Let's go over. And so we go over. Becca takes my son to the park so he doesn't have to kind of be around all this. And there's glass on his bed, and Michael helps board up the window, and just help clean up everything. I get another text message from one of the other neighbors saying, hey, I heard what happened. That really sucks. Can I come over? I've got wine. I said yes. And so my neighbors and I sat there in this house that was full of wreckage, and they just sat there with me 4 hours. It took the police to get there. 4 hours. And then, there was nothing to really do. But they're the ones who helped us do all the cleanup and everything. Another time, I was at the house alone. My husband was on a work trip, and Julian says, oh, look, Mama, there's police cars outside. And I look, and sure enough, there are police cars outside. But I was trying to get him to bed. I was trying to, brush teeth, do a bath, do read, get him to sleep. That's hard enough, right? So I'm like, okay, no problem. Yep, there's police cars out there, no big deal. So we go in, do our routine, bang, 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 on the door. I go out, there's an officer saying, ma'am, we need to have access to your house and your yard. Please take your child and your pets, go into a room, stay away from the windows. We'll let you know when it's safe. Seriously? So I take my son, turn off the lights, go in the bedroom, and 10 officers come to our house, at least. That's what I remember, at least. I don't know. With their automatic weapons, with their dogs, and they go through the backyard. And I'm just under the covers with my son singing as loud as I can into his ear to get him to go sleep. You are my sunshine, my sunshine. And there's gunfire, a lot of it. And I just keep singing over and over again. You'll never know how much I love you. And eventually, he fell asleep. And eventually, the gunfire stopped. I had my phone with me, and text messages from our neighbors were flying. Everybody was connected to each other saying, what's going on? Okay, the police are at our house. They were going yard to yard to yard because there was armed gunmen and they were trying to catch them. We never know. We never found out what happened to that. But the fact that I was connected to my neighbors through my phone all night, nobody slept, was so comforting. This is just an example of how important neighbors are to us. In our case, it felt like a matter of life and death sometimes, but even more than that, it's a matter of just getting over that stuff that we have of not wanting to let people into our space. We have to get over this stuff. We have to get over the shyness or the stereotypes or the feeling that everything has to be perfect before we let someone into our space, because there's a lot at stake. And there's a lot that can really be done when we're connected to each other. When we sold that house, the hardest thing was leaving those neighbors. Out of all the awesomeness of the Bay Area, that was the hardest thing. And we came back here to Tucson, and we're just totally welcomed with open arms by our old friends and neighbors and people who just showed up with food because we just had our second baby. And we just, we're closing on a house next week, actually, out on the west side.
West side?
West side. And I'm really excited for my kids to be growing up in a little more wildness and a little more connection to nature that I had growing up. And we had the chance to talk to the sellers. And they said, so what about the neighbors? Do you ever see your neighbors? And she's like, oh, no, we never see them, never hear them. It's like they're not even there. Like, it's a good thing.